Well, you've had a really big year. You had a new record come out, should have learned by now. It's great. It's one
Yeah.
of my favorite albums of the year. And then you also went on a tour with Lucero, and then you just went on a solo tour called the Bike Riders Tour. I want to hear more about that. Did you go to all those states just by motorcycle?
Yes. We did about 4,000 miles. It's me and just an acoustic guitar that I put in a waterproof bag and strap it down to the back of the motorcycle. And me and some tattoo artist friends of mine, Oliver Peck and Greg Christian, they ride along with me and they do tattoos during the day. And then I play an acoustic show every night. And then we ride to the next town. And yeah, we rode up, they rode up from, Oliver rode up from Texas and I rode up from Tennessee, and we started in Ohio. And then we kind of went down the East Coast and hit DC and North Carolina and all the way down into Florida. Um,
Oh.
and then but we hit a hurricane, actually, Hurricane Idalia,
Yeah, I was gonna
got
say
in the
I
way.
saw that. So how was
Yeah,
it
so
like?
we had to reschedule a few shows. We didn't ride through the hurricane. We decided
Uh-huh.
to avoid the hurricane. But yeah, we made it through. And we'll go back and make up those Florida dates in December.
That's awesome. And I wanted to ask, so how is it like touring, especially like on that tour, you're by bike, you're not on a bus, you're not in a band. How are those shows kind of different than the regular full band Lucero shows?
Yeah, the acoustic shows are usually a little more, I don't know, informal, a little more laid back. With when it's just me by myself, I can tell more stories and I can stop a song, tell a story, jump back in. I can kind of stop and start whenever I want. So so yeah, it's like I said, it's a little more informal, but still a lot of fun. The Lucero shows with the full band are, of course, a little bit louder and maybe a
Hmm.
little more rowdy.
Hmm.
Although the acoustic shows can get kind of rowdy too sometimes. It just depends on the crowd.
Oh yeah, I bet. I wanted to ask about motorcycles and biking because I've seen you post about that a little bit. How long have you been into that?
A friend of mine taught me how to ride. I didn't grow up riding, but a friend of mine was passing through town on a BMW K bike way back in like 2001, and I bribed him into letting me ride his motorcycle a little bit. Um, and so then not long after that, I bought my first bike, and yeah, didn't go on real long rides at first, but eventually in about 2010, I got a BMW GS, which I love,
Wow.
and I'm still riding it. And so I started doing bike riders tours in 2011, I think was the first one. Um, and then yeah, I haven't done a bike riders tour every year since then, but I don't know, we've done 6 or 7 of them, I think, over the years. But I'm always riding the motorcycles whenever I get a chance. It's just a nice way to kind of, I don't know, clear my mind and kind of get away from things for a little bit.
Especially
So
when
yeah,
you're on the road so much too, like to have kind of a different perspective on it than just kind of
yeah,
sitting passenger.
yeah. When you're on the road, you're never alone. There's always other people around. So yeah, getting on the bike and getting to ride. Um, it's just a way to, yeah, completely isolate myself and just kind of have some alone time. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I like it.
That's awesome. I love the song, the Lucero song, Bike Riders. That's like one of my top five
Oh
favorite
yeah.
Lucero songs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's based on a book of photographs by a guy named Danny Lyon, who was taking pictures of outlaw motorcycle gangs in Chicago in the 60s. Um, and actually, it just got made into a feature film by my little brother. He's a filmmaker.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so it stars Tom Hardy and Austin Butler and Jodie Comer. And it comes
Wow.
out December 1st, actually.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so yeah, he did a great job. He kind of basically, if you've heard the song and
Mhm.
you've heard the lyrics, that's kind of the story. That's kind of the arc of the story with Kathy and Benny and Johnny Davis. Um, and so yeah, so that song's taken on, yeah, a whole new life in numerous ways.
That's super cool. Did you do the music for that movie? Because I know you and your brother have collaborated a lot in the past.
We have in the past. We did a lot for Mud, and then
Hmm.
I wrote a song for Loving. Um, but for this one, it's a period piece. It's set in the 60s and the 70s. So most of the music is, period correct rock and roll
Hmm.
from that era. I think the Bike Riders song, the Lucero song, does play at the very end of the credits. so he got to squeeze it in there just for a second. But mainly it's 60s and 70s music, which I think was the right choice.
Yeah, it does sound more fitting knowing that that was the time period. I wanted to talk about another kind of side project you did this year. It's called The Last Wolf in the Woods. It was a collaboration album that you did with your daughter. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, my stepdaughter Jocelyn. She just turned 19. But when we recorded this stuff, it was kind of a pandemic project.
Hmm.
Everybody was stuck at home. We were off the road. And so yeah, I had this synthesizer, and I'd always liked kind of I don't know, 80s rock as well as kind of synth rock stuff. But
Hmm.
I don't get a chance to do that much in Lucero.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I wrote these songs that were kind of a different flavor, kind of an experiment just to see if I could do it. And Jocelyn's always been an excellent singer. So I wrote some lyrics, and I talked her into singing them. And I sing some of it, but mainly it's her voice that carries the album. And yeah, she did a great job. She'd never, we recorded most of it at home, but then we went down to Memphis and went into the studio where Lucero did our last album, and we recorded all the vocals in the studio in Memphis. And she'd never been in a real studio before, but she did a great job. She was a natural. So yeah, Last Wolf in the Woods. I think the album's called Raised on Losing Ground. And it's
Yes.
something different from Lucero, but I'm still real proud of those songs, and I'm definitely proud of Jocelyn and her singing. She did a great job.
Yeah, that's super cool. Should I do you mind if I play one of the songs in my broadcast tomorrow? Is there
Please
anyone that
do.
you request? Yeah, I'd love to play that.
Um, I think I Was So in Love is one that's kind of more upbeat, and
Hmm.
that her vocals really kind of stand out on. So that's a good one. I love that you just kind of play, whatever strikes your fancy and whatever you
Yeah,
like at the time. That's great. Not having any rules. That's kind of how Lucero has always done it. We didn't like confining ourselves to just one genre necessarily.
for
I got a
sure. And
lot of
you,
musical influences, and yeah, you can hear a little bit of everything in Lucero, I think.
yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, if you listen to the first, like was it basement tapes, the attic tapes or
Attic
something?
tapes,
The
yeah,
attic
attic
tapes, and then
tapes.
you listen to like Should Have Learned by Now, and then even like
Right.
I feel like Among the Ghosts is pretty experimental too.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Oh, that's one of my favorites too. I love that record.
Good, good. Yeah, that one just kind of all fell in place. Just the cover art was actually, an old church in Mississippi. I don't know exactly where it
Where?
is.
That's awesome. That was in
But
Mississippi.
you could track it down if you look on the internet a little bit.
Hmm.
But yeah, just the lyrics and the album art and the music all just kind of came together in a perfect package on Among the Ghosts. But yeah, we've had a great run. We've been doing this for almost 24 years now. So yeah, we've had a lot of chances to kind of experiment, and each album kind of goes its own direction. Um, I don't know, but I think at the end of the day, with the songwriting, um, you know, there might be different instruments here and there, but at the end of the day, it sounds like Lucero, I think.
Sure. And I think that's a perfect segue to talk a little bit more about the new record. It came out in
Yeah.
February of this year. Should have learned by now. Now, we were just talking about how Lucero has kind of evolved and changed around the years. What inspired this album in particular versus the other records?
Right. This one, well, I guess the last two albums, When You Found Me and Among the Ghosts, were a little darker and a little moodier.
Hmm.
And I was I was ready to make kind of a more upbeat rock and roll record. So the songs on Should Have Learned by Now are a little more, I don't know, maybe a little more fun, definitely on the lighter side. Um, and yeah, I wanted songs that would just be real fun to get up on stage and play. And so the lyrical content is maybe not quite as deep, not quite as dark. But I think that's a good thing from time to time. Um, and so yeah, it was a really fun record to make, and it's a fun record to play. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to do a back to basics rock and roll album.
I also wanted to talk about the album art. So you drew that, correct? I know you've
I
done a
did.
few of the. I know you did the album art for the Last Wolf in the Woods as well. How'd you kind of get
Yeah.
into drawing? Because I do like digital arts and illustration as well, and I love talking to
Oh, really?
musicians about. Yeah, I do.
When the band started, I was trying to draw a comic book or a graphic novel or something. And so, you know, I was actually working for my dad at the time, but then in my spare time, I was trying to get the band going and I was working on this comic. And I kind of figured whichever one took off first, I would maybe concentrate on. And so the band started to get busy, and the busier the band got, the less time I had for the comic book. But it's always been something I've wanted to do eventually. Um, and so we'll see. I might take those Last Wolf in the Woods lyrics and maybe draw a graphic novel kind of based around those. We'll see. But
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I got a couple years ago, I got one of those Apple iPads with the Apple Pencil.
Yep, that's what I
And that
use.
kind of changed my world. I was forever I'd drawn with like a crow quill pen and ink, and dipping the ink and inking the comic book pages, kind of
Hmm.
old school style. But that's really difficult to take on the road with you.
Oh
I've
yeah.
done it a couple of times, but it's not very easy, and it's messy. But with the iPad, yeah, I can draw anywhere, and so yeah, and I've been able to throw stuff together for, yeah, whether it was I've done a few. I did When You Found Me, that album
Hmm.
cover, and the new one that should have learned by now, which is really just pretty simple art. It's based on an old photograph of me and the guitar player Brian Venable, and I just kind
Yes.
of sketched it out and um and made us skeleton figures. And then I did a bunch of other art for the record where I just took a bunch of old photos and made everybody skeletons in it. It was pretty cool. It came out kind of a little rough around the edges, but in a good way. And so yeah, that became kind of the artistic theme for the album. And yeah, I think it fits with the rock and roll kind of style of the
Hmm.
music.
Yeah, it's really cool. You're right with the Apple Pencil, especially it's so like adaptive too, so you can like fix your lines, like
Yeah,
kind of
it's
go in
great.
there in places you can't really when you're doing physical art.
Yeah. Photoshop was too complicated for me. I couldn't ever figure that out. But with Procreate on the Apple iPad, this is kind of like a commercial for Apple and Procreate app. It makes it's so intuitive. You can do all the stuff
Yeah.
you would do in Photoshop, but you just do it with the Apple Pencil, and it's just super easy. So yeah, it's a really fun little gadget to have. I didn't buy one for a long time. I put it off for a long time, but when I finally broke down and got it, I was really glad I did.
Yeah, me too. I broke down in COVID because I was taught
Yeah.
how to draw with on Photoshop with like a Wacom tablet where you plug
Yeah,
it into the
exactly.
computer.
Yeah.
And that was
It's
hard. Like I liked
cumbersome.
it, but yeah, the Apple Pencil is a game changer. I did a whole
Totally.
mural doing the Apple Pencil. It's
No,
at
that's
a local
great.
library here. Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's awesome. Good for you.
yeah, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, that you can do all sorts of stuff with them. And then making videos. I did a couple of kind of animated videos for the When You Found Me album.
I think I might have
Um,
seen one of those.
yeah, and then I edited together some videos for Buy Little Time off the newest record,
Hmm.
and a couple other things here and there. Um, but yeah, it's just been really useful and handy. And so yeah, now along with writing the songs and playing them live, I've also become the art department and the video department for Lucero as well. So
I
yeah,
mean,
and graphic design. I'm just doing it all.
I think it's so cool that when you can kind of create this whole world for your music as well. You're like, you don't, it's more than just that. Like you have this whole kind of graphics and art that goes along with it. And that just kind of fascinates me being from a more art background.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes it can be a challenge. But yeah, it's really cool. And you don't have to, if you've got an idea, you don't have to track somebody else down to figure it out. You can just do it all yourself. And
Exactly.
yeah, and just put it out into the world. And yeah, it's great.
It's awesome. Right. I also wanted to ask about your set list for Lucero's show. So if people know you like to change it up, and usually you guys play pretty long shows. Like you'll play for a few hours, and I
We
wanted
do.
to. Yes, it's really awesome. I love it, and I wanted to know how do you come up making with all those albums that you have, because you have a lot of albums with
Right.
your time that you have on stage. How do you decide like which night? Okay, this is what we're going to play. This is what we're not going to play.
Right. Um, and then a lot of times folks will yell out requests, and I'll try to fit in
Yes.
as many of those as I can if we remember them. We've got so many records and so many songs. Some of the stuff, it's just been so long that we just don't remember it, and we'd have to go
Mhm.
back and learn it. Um, but we've got quite a few of them, under our fingertips still. And there's kind of the old school classics that everybody expects to hear and that everybody wants to hear, kind of no matter you know where the show is or what the show is.
Mhm.
There's some songs that you know always get played, or 99% of the time get played. um and then there's whatever I'm kind of in the mood for. um and that kind of changes from show to show and from tour to tour. And then of course, if you've got a new record, you want to play a few of those for sure, as many of those as you can. um on this coming up tour in the fall, we're doing a 20th anniversary repress of That Much Further West.
Yes, I was
uh,
going to ask about that.
yeah, so we'll be doing a bunch of That Much Further West songs and then a bunch of the new album songs. So that'll probably make up the bulk of the set for this fall tour. And then, we'll throw in whatever folks yell out for, and, whatever crosses my mind at the time. But yeah, in the old days, we'd play for way too long. We'd play for
Really?
3 hours some nights. Now we usually boil it down to an hour and a half or 2 hours, and that's usually pretty good. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, but it's tough to squeeze it all in. You gotta, yeah, you can't play everything not all in one night for sure.
Especially when you got all the diehard fans like asking all the requests.
Yeah, not everybody's gonna get their request, but I try to do as many as I can.
Yeah, and speaking of the fans, it was another one thing I wanted to talk about because I noticed something being at a Lucero show and just like going to other concerts in general. Your fans have a large presence. Like I remember, I saw American Aquarium last year, and I saw it was in Memphis, and Corey Brennan was opening,
Oh wow,
and
that's great.
yeah, it was great. It was at the High Tone, but I had
Mhm.
I've been like a casual listener of the band at that time, and I saw so many people wearing Lucero hats and Lucero shirts and talking about Lucero. And this wasn't even
Oh,
at a Lucero show, and Rick was there. And so as soon as I got home from that show, I was like, I just need to listen to Lucero because your
oh,
fans
that's
just have
great.
that much of a presence. Yeah. And then I
That's
went
nice to
to,
hear.
thank you. And then I went to your show a couple months later, and just like the energy, like when you tell people like it's your first show, people were like, I'm so excited for you. Like, this is gonna be great. Like the fans just have, and I've been to so many concerts, so many other different
Right.
artists, but Lucero fans just kind of have they're a different type, and I think it's wonderful. And I wanted to ask you, how do you like as an artist, how do you think you build your fan community? Because I know you do a lot for the fans as well. Like you have the Memphis Festival that you've done in the past.
Yeah,
You tend to play a lot of the songs. So I want to know from your perspective, what do you think about that?
man. Yeah, we've got a great crowd, and a lot of them have stuck with us for a really really long time. um yeah, Lucero's not the most popular band. We don't have the biggest audience. We don't have the biggest crowd, but the crowd that we do have has been very loyal and
Mhm.
fanatical almost. And yeah, uh it really feels kind of like a big family, an extended family. And yeah, I know that there's some folks that have been coming to our shows since the very early days, the early 2000s. And, then they had kids, and their kids are teenagers now, and their kids come to the shows. And sometimes there'll be, a guy in his 40s or something. He'll bring his mom and dad and his kids, and it's three generations of folks. And yeah, that's pretty special. That's a big compliment, um, when folks are that dedicated and
Mhm.
and pay that much attention to us, and really listen, um, to the lyrics the way a lot of our audience does. I think that might be why Lucero maybe isn't quite, uh, I don't know, as well known as some other bands. I think you really got to listen to the lyrics to really get it. And if you're
Mhm.
just kind of, listening in the background, yeah, it's all right, but it might not stick with you. But once I think the songs get their hooks in you and the lyrics, and you really dig into the lyrics, I think I hope people can find something to relate to. And once you can really relate to something like that, um, maybe that's kind of where that long-term bond comes from. Whatever it is, I appreciate him being there. And
Mhm.
yeah, we couldn't do it without him, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was really well said. I totally agree about the lyrics. They're almost like their own stories. I mean, you can listen to them kind of passively and it's like, oh, that's good. Or you could even like sometimes I'll catch myself like singing one of the hooks of the songs in my car and I'm like, oh, that's what that's about. And kind
Yeah,
of
for sure.
connecting that. And I think it gives songs like that more staying power. I feel like when you know
Definitely.
when you have a song that's a story that I mean songs those kinds of fans like Lucero that have those good lyrics. I feel like those are the music that I gravitate towards the most.
Yeah, I wrote the songs to kind of get me through some long nights, um, some rough nights. And I think if I don't know, I've talked to folks in the past who you know, they've said stuff like, this song really got me through a tough time. And I'm like, yeah, I wrote that when I was having a tough time. And
Mhm.
so yeah, when I don't know, going through something like that, um, yeah, it's something I don't know. It's something a little more important, maybe, um, than just your average rock and roll song. Um, or I that's it is to me, and I hope it is
Mhm.
to the folks that are listening as well. That's always a really big compliment when somebody said these lyrics got me through something tough. Um, that's always it's just always good to hear.
So, speaking of kind of writing and songs and lyrics, I wanted to talk a little bit about your solo album, Last Pale Light in the West.
Right?
And
Yeah.
it was because it was inspired by Blood Meridian. And I wanted to know how do books inspire your writing and a little more about that project, but also like, are there any other books or authors that really changed the way that you write your own music?
Oh man. Um, well, the Cormac McCarthy book, Blood Meridian, is definitely still my favorite novel.
Mhm.
And yeah, that whole Last Pale Light in the West solo record is based on that book. And really what I did there was the the second time I read it, there was just so many lines that stuck out to me as uh I was just like, oh, these would be great in a song. And so that's what I did. I just stole those lines and then wrote other lyrics around them. Um, and yeah, and then I, I ended up with this kind of I don't know. I'm not sure what concept album, I guess, basically based on Blood Meridian. Um,
Mhm.
and and yeah, I've never done anything like that before, but I think it turned out well, and it's gotten one of the songs got played on The Walking Dead, and it's kind of it's made its way out into the world, and yeah, a lot of people have told me that they've read Blood Meridian because of that album. So yeah, it
Mhm.
was a really cool project. And I don't know, I've never thought of myself as a writer necessarily.
Really, that's interesting.
Definitely not like a novelist or a story writer. Although that's it's kind of what I'm doing. Um, but I've tried and I can't really write anything without the music. The music
Mhm.
uh, is always the first step in the songwriting process.
Oh, that's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, no, I don't ever write words without the music first. And usually already got the melody, so I know how I'm going to sing the words. I just have to find the words that fit. Um, so yeah, for me, it's tough writing without that framework. Um, but still, there's a lot of authors that I love. There's a Southern writer named Larry Brown. He was from Oxford, Mississippi, and
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, and I really loved his short stories. And I just kind of liked the worlds that he built and the way he described things. And um, I don't know. I tried to do that. I've tried to approach some songs kind of in a way that I thought he might write them. Um, but and then yeah, there's all this stuff. And now that you're asking me, I'm kind of like I'm blanking out on my favorite authors. But
That's how
yeah,
it
I'm
always
for
happens when
sure.
you ask what your favorite thing is. You just like
It
so
does,
hard.
doesn't it? It does.
Mhm.
And I read a lot of histories. And so I don't know. There's I read a bunch of Stephen Ambrose novels, or not novels, histories, when I was in college. Um, and so he had one called Citizen Soldiers, which if you watch a movie like Saving Private Ryan, about World War II, a lot of the stuff in that movie kind of came out of that book, and accounts that were retold in that book. my granddad was in World War II in Europe.
Wow.
Um, and so reading those histories, and then hearing family stories about my grandfather, um, I used that to put a song together about the war. Um,
Hmm.
and so, yeah, you never know where the inspiration will come from, but yeah, reading a lot doesn't hurt. Um, it's always, you never know where you can find something good to kind of borrow from.
Oh, for sure. Because then it can, like what you were saying about the war, you can kind of connect it to your own experiences or ways of thinking or
Definitely.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. If you can bring something personal to, um, the book you read, or the poem you read, or yeah, or this history that you read, and if you can find a way to relate to it personally and then put that into a song, yeah, that's probably going to strike a chord with the listener.
And it's just a never-ending cycle because then the person hears a song and then they put
Hopefully so.
their
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
Hopefully so.
yeah, that's so awesome. And that's also really cool about what you said about The Walking Dead. And I wanted to ask, how is it like when you have your songs and shows? Because I was watching One Tree Hill and I heard
Oh yeah,
Lucero in One Tree Hill, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was even like back in the early 2000s. Like,
it was way
how
back. Yeah,
yeah, how do things
that
like
might have
that happen?
been that might have been one of the first shows we ever had a song in. And it's all up to the showrunner. I didn't know what a showrunner was. I knew, directors and actors and producers, but in TV, it's the showrunner, who he might not be the director of that particular episode, but he's the guy who's kind of in charge of the whole series and kind of the direction that the story's going. And he might write a lot of the episodes. Um, and yeah, the showrunner on One Tree Hill happened to discover us and happened to be a fan. And he would I know a lot of episode names were Lucero song
Yeah,
titles.
so where I called that, I was like,
Yeah.
this
Like It
is a
Gets the
huge
Worst at Night, I
drama.
think might have been one of
Yeah,
them.
if that
And then
was,
and
yeah.
yeah, and then they used a little bit of the music here and there. And it was the same with Walking Dead. The guy it was Scott Gimple was the showrunner at the time, and he'd been listening to The Last Pale Light in the West. And one of the biggest compliments I ever got was he was like, "Oh, I wrote a lot of scenes for The Walking Dead listening to this album.
Oh,
Uh,
it's so
and so if I
cool.
could use this song, it'd be great." I kind of wrote this scene with the governor with this song in mind. I was like, "Oh yes, please, please use it. That would be great." So yeah, that was a really cool thing. I wish if more of that could happen, I would be ecstatic. That was super cool.
Oh, for sure. It's always, exciting when you can when your songs can have a new light in something like a television
Totally,
show.
totally. Yeah, and now online, the song is called "The Last Pale Light in the West," but a lot of people just know it as the governor's theme or the governor's song,
Wow.
because he was the character that was focused on when the song was playing. So,
Oh,
so it's cool. Yeah, it's really cool for it to have a whole nother life.
I definitely want to play that song as well on air because that's one of my favorite songs of yours. I think it's
Thank you. I like it
brilliant.
too. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we're wrapping up on time here, and I just wanted a couple more things to wrap up the interview. I wanted to talk a little bit more about, so you have the 20th anniversary edition of That Much Further West coming out. So what
Yeah.
is the vinyl like? Like, how is it like revisiting that album? And then what is the release of it like? Because I'm excited. Just
Well, in the early days, we would do vinyl here and there, kind of sporadically, what we could afford, and sometimes the quality wasn't the best. There's a few of those still floating around, but they're hard to come by.
mhm.
And so, yeah, now we're getting a little older, and we have the means to remaster things and then have them recut for vinyl and actually, use decent vinyl in at a decent pressing plant. And so the quality on these 20th anniversary reissues is a lot better than the originals. So I think the records will sound better on your record player. But yeah, we started, I guess our self-titled record came out uh, around 2001, and then
Mhm.
Tennessee came out in 2002, and That Much Further West came out in 2003. So it's
Wow.
2023 and it's time to put it out. So we'll have more and more 20-year anniversary editions coming out kind of as the years progress. Um, yeah, as long as we can, yeah, keep going.
That makes me
Um,
excited as a vinyl collector. I have the Tennessee one and I have the self-titled one, so I'm
oh,
excited to
great.
get this one as
Well, yeah,
well.
this one comes out. I think it comes out November. Ooh, I'm not sure. It comes out in November. Um, And I
It
think the
comes
night,
out November 3rd. I put it in my
there
notes.
we go. And I think we're going to be in Baltimore that night. So we might, just to celebrate the release of the reissue, I think we're going to do the whole album live front to back, you know?
Mm.
So, so yeah, it'll be fun. And it'll be nice to have it back. It'll be nice to have that record back on vinyl, back out in the world, available for purchase.
Oh, for sure. So you got that coming out, and then you have the fall tour. Anything else you want to
Yeah.
mention?
Man, we've covered a lot of ground. You were well prepared. I think we've covered all the bases. We've got a big Lucero Christmas party coming up. I don't know if that's announced yet, but mid-December we'll do a hometown Lucero show. Christmas.
I want to
show.
try to go to that because I'm
Yeah.
Mississippi. I'm in Ripley. It's a small town, but
Okay.
it's like
Yeah.
an hour and a half from Memphis.
All right. Yeah. No, that's well within reach.
Yeah,
So
we
yeah,
go to
right
Memphis
in the middle
often.
of December, 15th or 16th. Keep an eye out. We'll announce it soon. But yeah, we'll do a Lucero family Christmas, and have a band or two, some friends play, and yeah, it'll be fun. But yeah, and then we'll just get ready for 2024 and just keep trucking along.
Super exciting. Yeah, the Christmas show sounds great when I try to make it out to that.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ben. I really appreciate you coming on the show and donating some of your time for this interview. It was really great speaking with you. You're one of my favorite musicians, and Sarah's one of my favorite bands. It was great to kind of learn more about the music today.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed it.